Okay, good morning everybody, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning as we are studying together Perashat Vayeshev. And basically, the Perashat begins with Yosef and the hatred that his brothers have for him. The Pasuk tells us right off in the beginning, if we open up to the beginning of our Perashat, the Pasuk says, Yosef ben Sheva Esrei Shana, he's a 17-year-old kid. He was his shepherding for his father with his brothers, and he would constantly speak gossip to the father. V'Yisrael havet Yosef mikol banav ki ben zekunim hulo. We already had a class on what the words ben zekunim mean. We saw that ben zekunim could mean a child that he had when he was old. So it's his youngest child. In this case, it was his second to youngest child. And we explained why Binyamin doesn't earn the title ben zekunim. Why is specifically Yosef that gets that title. But take a look at what Onkelos says. Onkelos says, Ben Zekunim Bar Hakim. He was a wise son to him. Yosef was wise. There's something more that he knew than the other brothers. Now, there was no yeshivas back then. There was no schools. If he knew more, it's because Yaakov taught him more. What more did Yaakov teach him that he didn't teach his other 11 sons? Says Rashi, Kol ma shelamad mishem ve'ever masar lo. Whatever he learned in the yeshiva and the academy of Shem ve'ever, he taught to him. And this is a very interesting Rashi over here. And Rashi seems to be telling us, based on Onkelos, that Yosef was taught extra knowledge, extra material than the other brothers, and this caused them to be jealous. Now, just to spend a minute on this and understand, first of all, what was that extra Torah that he taught him? Why did he teach it only to Yosef and not to the other brothers? And why were the brothers jealous of that Torah? So really, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky explains, going back really to understand this, because what does Rashi say? Kol ma shelamad mishem ve'ever. When did Yaakov study in Shem ve'ever? Anyone know? Anyone remember? When did he study there? I didn't know that he was there. I thought he was all the time studying from his father Yitzchak. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh baro. So, we know very good, when he was running away from his father's house, Rashi says over there that he spent 14 years to study in Shem ve'ever. So really, already back then, we need to wonder and ask ourselves, what are you trying to accomplish, Yaakov? And I believe we spoke about this last week or 2 weeks ago. You know, you're studying Torah for so many years. You're in your 60s, maybe 70s, yeah? Go get a life already. Get married. 14 more years in yeshiva? Like, is that enough what you have already? What is he learning in the yeshivat Shem ve'ever already that he didn't already have? Explains Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, there's two types of Torah. There's the Torah of the Avot. The Avot set up yeshivot. They set up study academies. They set up places to learn Torah. But that was kind of like a bubble, a tevat Noach. That was the type of yeshiva that you're alone and isolated from the world. You're not really involved in the world. That's what Yaakov was learning for the first 60 years of his life. But there's a very different type of Torah. It's a Torah of learning how to be Yaakov in a world of Esav. How to be a Jew in a place that is surrounded with values that are so different than ours. And I think most of us have the second type of concern that we have to worry about. Most of us are not in yeshiva. Most of us are not in a tevat Noach, where we're isolated from the world. We're involved in the world. We're in the world of commerce. We're out and about. We're with the people around us. And we're sometimes in rooms and coffee rooms and classrooms or whatever it is that we have to hear different ideas. How does one balance that? How does one learn to be a Jew while not, and still at the same time to interact with the world around? That it maybe is very different values than what Judaism's values are. And this is the Torah of Shem ve'ever. Shem ve'ever were the ones who lived in a generation of the Mabul. That was what the Torah that Yaakov had to go and learn. It's a different type of art. You know, many times kids go to yeshiva for the year and they study and they do amazing. And then they come back, and unfortunately sometimes you see certain kids that when they come back, they literally just drop everything. And the kid who was just a few months ago steiging away and the most religious, most observant, the kid was there in the Bet Midrash till 1 a.m. and he would wake up at 5 a.m. and he wouldn't take off any Shabbat. And when the yeshiva went on a trip to, Eilat, and they went to the kosher section and to the religious separate part of the Yam HaMelach, he didn't even go there. He was on the bus the whole time studying, And all of a sudden, a few months later, the kid comes back, and just 1 month, 2 months in college, 2 months back in home, and he dropped it all. He forgot everything. How does that happen? That happens because he only studied one type of Torah when he was in Israel. He only learned the Torah of the Avot, so to speak. He only learned how to be religious when you're in a religious environment. But what happens now when you're back in the real world? That's something that Yaakov never learned. Now that he's going out and he's leaving his parents' home into the dangerous world of Lavan, he needed to prepare. He needed 14 years in the Bet Midrash. Like my rabbi says sometimes in Israel, they teach him how to take off, but they don't teach him how to land. They teach him how to go and be amazing. They don't teach him how to bring it back. So this is a very important lesson. Yaakov Avinu realizes that he only knows how to take off. He doesn't know how to land. So he goes 14 years to Shem Ve'ever to learn this type of Torah. And he gets it, and he goes out and he's very successful. He's able to come back from Lavan's house after spending 20 years. And he says the words, Im Lavan garti v'taryag mitzvot shamarti. I was able to be with Lavan and still keep the Torah. That's something that's very hard to do. It's very easy to be observant. People ask me sometimes, how does it feel, Rabbi, to live in the city? And I tell them, honestly, I don't live in the city. I live in the shul and I live in my house. Both are filled with Torah. I don't live in the city. It's very easy for someone like me to stay observant with the world that I'm in. I'm always learning. I'm always teaching. I'm always studying. I'm always involved in Jewish organizations and what have you. But to be out there in the world and to remain a Jew and to remain committed and connected, that is a much, much bigger challenge. And so now it says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, come back to our Perashah and take a look where Yaakov, it says he taught everything that he learned in Shem Ve'ever to Yosef. It doesn't say that he taught him all the Torah that he had. No, he gave Torah to all of his kids. But there's a special chapter of Torah that he had that he gave only to Yosef, and that's the 14 years that he spent studying in Shem Ve'ever. That second type of Torah, that he only gave to Yosef. And we all understand why. Because Yosef's the only one that needed it. Yaakov maybe knew through Ruach HaKodesh that Yosef's going to be out there alone in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, with no misgeret, with no environment, with no setting of Torah. Yosef's going to be the one who's going to need to learn this art of being Yaakov in the world of Esav. And so he specifically teaches Yosef the Torah of Shem Ve'ever. The other brothers didn't need it because what happened when they moved down to Egypt, like we're going to read in 2 weeks from now. When they go down, the Pasuk says, Ve'et Yehuda shalach lefanav goshna. He sends Yehuda ahead of him. Yehuda is out there preparing a yeshiva already in Egypt before the brothers come down. So the second they come down, boom! They have again a yeshiva waiting for them. They kind of, again, I don't want to call it cheating, but a little bit they were cheating. Their whole life they're learning in a beautiful Tevat Noach, in the beautiful protection and bubble. They never left the bubble. Yosef had to leave the bubble. He needed the Torah of Shem Ve'ever. Now the brothers didn't understand this. The brothers thought that dad was giving Yosef special Torah that he's going to need because they misread the whole thing. They thought, oh, you see, so he's picking Yosef over us to be the continuer of the family legacy, and the rest of us are just going to be like, just chop liver like Esav and Ishmael, and we're out of the family, and that's why they hated Yosef. So what happens? The brothers go down one day to Shechem. The Pasuk says, so here we go. Then he has dreams, which by the way don't help. Okay, not sure if Yosef was being coached properly. Probably not. He didn't have a mother, which makes sense. Okay, his mother did die when he was a little kid. So it makes sense that he's going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm sure if Rachel was alive, she would say Yosef down and say, listen, honey, maybe it's not the best idea to tell your brothers about your dreams that you're having. Just saying, I don't know. Let's just keep it between us, okay? But he didn't have a mother. And he makes mistakes. He tells his brother about the dreams. You're going to bow down to me. And again, he instigates and he gets under their skin a little bit. And all of a sudden, one day, take a look. This is where it all goes south. Vayelechu ehav, pasuk 12, l'rot etzon avihem b'Shechem. One day the brothers go out to shepherd in Shechem. Okay. Vayomer Yisrael et Yosef. Now Yisrael says to Yosef, hello. Hebrew and English. If you're reading with me, you'll understand why I'm laughing. Okay. Hello, ahecha ro'im b'Shechem. Okay, your brothers are out in Shechem. Lecha ve'eshlahacha lehem. Go out and see how they're doing. Vayomer lo hineni, and Yosef says, here I am ready to do whatever you want, Father. Why was Yaakov so worried about checking up on the brothers? Why did he send him to Shechem? Anyone know? What happened in Shechem? We all know what happened in Shechem just last week. The brothers, remember? Shimon and Levi killed the entire city. So Yaakov over here is very worried for good reason. In Shechem we have a bad rep. Over there in Shechem they know who we are, they know what we did, and maybe there's still vengeance in the air. Maybe they're still trying to get even with the family of Yaakov. And this is a great opportunity for the people of Shechem, where the bruise, the wound is still fresh. When the brothers are down there, maybe they're going to try to fight them and get revenge. So Yosef, quickly go check up on your brothers. See how they're doing in Shechem. This is why he sends him. This is, who says this? This is the Rashbam. Okay, Rashi's grandson. Okay, Rav Shemuel ben Meir. Rashi's grandson says what I just told you. And adds Rav Gifter. I didn't hear it from Rav Gifter, I heard it from Rabbi Isaac Bernstein, and he quotes Rav Gifter. Rav Gifter says, and he adds something beautiful. Was Yaakov like just unaware? We're all reading this like, oh no, don't send him. Yeah, it's not going to be good for you. Just don't do it, Yaakov. Keep him with you, under your nose, under your wing, in your own house. Don't send him to the brothers. Was Yaakov like oblivious? Was he not following the story? Did he not see the pattern, the jealousy, the hatred? Was he unaware of what was going on? Says Rav Gifter, Yaakov knew very well what was going on. He knew that the brothers didn't like Yosef. He knew that the brothers were super jealous of Yosef. So then why does he send him there? Says Rav Gifter, to the contrary. He sends him because he knew there was a hatred. He sends him because they were specifically in Shechem. What happened in Shechem? Once upon a time in Shechem, the brothers fought for their sister's life. Shimon and Levi took a sword and they went out and they killed the entire city to destroy everybody, whoever stood in their way, just to protect their sister. Look how strong your brotherly love was. Look how strong your love for your own kin was when you were back in Shechem. And hopefully Yaakov was hoping that the place itself would arouse certain feelings of brotherly love within the brothers for Yosef, so that when Yosef comes to meet them, the brothers are going to have mercy and forgiveness and rachmanut for him. So this is why Yaakov sends Yosef specifically to that city. Of course, you know how the story plays out. Yosef comes down and the brothers are super angry. And they see him and they're like, oh, here we go. Here's the dream boy. Let's see what's going to be with his dreams. Let's see what's going to happen. So what happens? Yosef comes down and they plan on killing him. They're ready to kill Yosef. And who saves the day, by the way? Who steps in? The pasuk says, Vayishma Reuven, Vayatzilehu miyadam. Reuven's listening and he saves Yosef. And he says, listen, he's our brother. Let's not kill him. Instead, let's give him another chance. Instead, let's throw him into a pit. And yesterday we spoke specifically about this. We spoke yesterday about the pit, or maybe 2 days ago, whenever it was. We spoke about the pit and how exactly is that considered saving him. After all, we know that the pit had snakes and scorpions, so I don't know really that's called saving him. You're going to throw him into a lion's den. But this is what Reuven suggests. Let's save him. And Reuven is the one that's given the credit for saving Yosef's life, because the brothers were ready to kill him on the spot. It's only thanks to Reuven that they threw him in the pit, and then in the pit he was saved from the snakes and scorpions. They ended up selling him to the Egyptians, and we know how the whole story plays out, where he becomes the viceroy. But the credit goes to Reuven. Matter of fact, his name Reuven, our rabbis tell us, Gemara Masechet Berachot, that when Leah names her son Reuben, that's two words in one. Reu means to see, and Ben, what does Ben mean? Ben means son. See my son. Take a look at my son and compare my son with my father-in-law's son. Who was Leah's father-in-law? Yitzchak. And Yitzchak's son was Esav. Says Leah, compare my son to Esav. Esav lost the birthright to his younger brother Yaakov. And he lost it willingly. He sold it for the lentil soup. And look how it played out. He ended up hating his brother, even though he gave it to him fair and square. And he wanted to kill his brother. Compare that with my son, with Reuven. Reuven also lost the birthright. Reuven and Esav are very similar. They both lost the birthright to their younger brother. Yeah, Esav lost it to Yaakov. Reuven lost it to Yosef. One would expect that Reuven would act with feelings of hatred as well to Yosef. But instead, not only doesn't he hate him, but he's actually the one that comes to save his life. Reuven right here is the one stepping up and saying, don't kill Yosef. Let's give him another chance. And not only that, but why did Reuven lose the birthright? Did he sell it? Did he give it up willingly? No, none of the above. He made a big mistake that cost him the birthright. What was that mistake? So just to go back to last week's parasha for one moment. Yaakov Avinu, we know, had 4 wives. 2 main wives and 2 maid wives, okay? The 2 wives were Rachel and Leah. Then the 2 maid wives were Bilhah and Zilpah. And out of the 4, we know that Yaakov's main love was for Rachel. And therefore, Yaakov's bed, his main bed where he slept every night, was with Rachel, barring situations that he was with a different wife. But for the mainstay, he was always with Rachel. That's where his bed was, in her tent. Problem is, what happens when Rachel passes away? When Rachel passes away, where does he move his bed to? So one would assume right away the next option is just Leah. Of course, she's the main wife as well. And this is where Yaakov does something that surprises everybody, including Reuven. He moves the bed to Bilhah's tent. And Reuven over here is very offended. Reuven's like, oh no. It's one thing you want to pick Rachel over my mother, but to pick the maid over my mother. And again, I use the word maid. We have to remember, it's not like the maid that we have today, like Lupe, who's in the kitchen. Not that maid, okay? Different type of maid. But either way, Bilhah is second to Leah. You pick Bilhah over my mother? And Reuven was super offended. And what does he do? He goes into the room, he grabs the bed, and he pulls it out of Bilhah's tent, and he brings it into his mother's tent, into Leah's tent. And that's why he loses the birthright. At the end of his life, Yaakov Avinu is blessing all of his children, and when it comes to Reuven, he doesn't bless him. Instead, he rebukes him and he criticizes him, and he says, Pahaz kamayim al totar, because you acted with haste. You were rash. You lose it all. And this is why Reuven loses the birthright. And nonetheless, he comes and he steps up for his brother and he saves his life. And we may wonder and ask ourselves, why specifically Reuven of all the brothers? Why was he more compassionate? And there's really 2 answers. One answer, says Rav Aaron Kotler, is because the other brothers were kind of perfect. When Yosef has the dreams, they're very offended. Who do you think you are to have dreams that you're superior to us? We're just as good as you. We're going to bow down to you? So the brothers were very offended, but Reuven was actually in teshuvah mode because of what he did with the beds. Because he moved the beds. So he realized he made such a big mistake. It was disrespectful of him. He shouldn't have gotten involved in his father's sleeping affairs. And so now Reuven realizes that he is small, that he is lacking. And so he goes through life with a certain mindset where he's able to look at other people and say, you know what? Maybe they're greater than I. He has a certain humility because of his mistakes of his past. And a lot of times it's usually the people with humble beginnings. That's why as Jews we must always remind ourselves of our humble beginnings. We begin the Haggadah with Avadim Hayinu. You know, we look around today and we're wealthy and we're successful as Jews. But a Jew must never become arrogant. We must always remind ourselves who we were, where we began. We were once poor, we were once nothing. When a person reminds themselves of their humble beginnings, a lot of times we see this by Baal Tshuva. When they used to do horrible things in their youth, and then they grow and they change. They're never arrogant, they never feel superior to other people because they know, I'm nothing. They have maybe a tattoo lying under one of their shirts. So this is the maybe even I would even say the advantage of having mistakes in our past. Mistakes keep us humble. They keep us in check. And so Reuven, because he has mistakes, he's able to view Yosef and to think maybe he is more righteous than I. And so he doesn't have the same jealousy that the brothers have for the dreams that he says over. That's one idea. But there maybe is a little bit of a deeper idea of why Reuven saves Yosef. And it's not just a coincidence that he made a mistake with the beds and now he is here to save the day. We could possibly suggest that Reuven actually learns his lesson. You see, Reuven's mistake when he moves the beds is he was quick to act. You know, think about in our lives. How many times we say something in the spur of the moment, in the heat of the argument. Someone says something, we get insulted. We walk into a situation that we're just super annoyed and we had a bad day or whatever happened. And all of a sudden we just lash out on everybody and everything. And all of a sudden we say sometimes something that we end up regretting just 5 seconds later. And we feel horrible that we said certain things and we wish we could just go back 5 seconds in time. Why did I make that joke? Why did I say that insult? Why did I use that word? Why did I raise my hand? Why did I do those things? Sometimes in life, if we could just go back, if we had just a 5 second. That's why a lot of people love, by the way, sending messages on WhatsApp. As opposed to text messages, you can't delete what you said. WhatsApp, right? We could delete for everyone. We love that option. But imagine in life we had the delete button. Sometimes you don't though. We can't always delete what we said. And therefore one of the biggest keys to success in life is just waiting. If there's something that we want to do or something that we want to say, maybe we should wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Let's just breathe, calm down, think about what's going on. So many of the problems and the fights that we have in the relationships and marriages that are broken are because words that are thrown without giving it a little bit of time. Time heals things. Time is very powerful. And Reuven realizes that here he is and he sees the bed and he walks into the room and he's like, whoa, what's going on over here? The beds! And he runs into the office and he says to the boss, oh, why'd you give them the project? Why didn't you ask me to do this? Why'd you move me? Why'd you do that? And Reuven, he acts out of haste. And he realizes just a few minutes later that if he just would have waited, then maybe he wouldn't regret what he did, what he said. Sometimes if we could just think things through and we could calm down, the next time you're upset, okay, just breathe. They write all these pieces of advice, count to 10, get a drink of water. They're very helpful because sometimes just letting things settle, letting things calm down, thinking things through. The mistake of Reuven was that he didn't think. We could solve so many problems with thinking in life. Just waiting a little bit. Pause. Just pause. Don't stop. Just pause. Just breathe. Just calm down for a second. I know you're anxious. I know you're worked up. Just calm down, okay? Just calm down. I promise it's not as a big deal as you think it is right now. And so what we find over here is that Reuven now actually learns his lesson. Because when the brothers are looking at Yosef coming and they are worked up and they're angry, he has these dreams that we're bowing down to him. Let's kill him. And this is their in the spur of the moment. And what does Reuven say? Guys, I made that mistake once. I once made a choice. I once took action without being deliberate, without thinking it through, and it cost me. Let's just think of it here. And so that's why Reuven specifically is the one to step up and to save the day and to try to stop the brothers from doing this horrible, monstrous act. It's specifically to Reuben because he has experience. He made this mistake. Let's not act rash. This is what the Seforno says. Amazing concepts. And so he comes in and he stops them and he saves his brother's life. So this is greatness at its best. This is Reuven who made a mistake. He was rash. He did it with the beds, and he learns his lesson, and he ends up being able to save Yosef's life. And this is like real teshuvah, kind of like what the Rambam writes, that the next time you're in the same situation, the same girl, the same feeling, everything is the same, and then instead of doing the sin, holding oneself back. This is teshuvah at its best, and this is what we learn from the Pahas Kamayim of Reuven, to just wait. Our rabbis say in Pirkei Avot, Hevu metunim bedim, the first piece of advice that our rabbis give us in Pirkei Avot is just be deliberate. You see something, you assume you know what's going on, and we love jumping to conclusions. We love thinking that we figured it all out. We're Sherlock Holmes and we know everything and we got it. I understand the situation. You see your friend and she made a lunch and she didn't invite you. Oh, I know everything about everything. And then we jump and we start a whole fight. Right? We love thinking that we figured it all out. Instead of just sometimes pausing, maybe there's something that I'm missing. Hevu metunim badin. Just wait. Stenna in Arabic, right? Wait. Patience. If we just could wait a little bit, right? We all saw what's going on, right? With Kyle Rittenhouse, right? So here's this guy that was out there and he killed a few people because he was supposedly on self-defense. And everyone's jumping to conclusions. He's guilty, he's a racist, he's this, he's that. And imagine we didn't have a court system. Imagine we didn't have a justice system. And they take this kid and they just kill him because we assume that right away he was just acting and he's a racist and he was killing innocent people. Thank God we have a judicial system where we go back and we have a jury and we have a prosecutor and we have a defendant and the facts are able to be laid out. And they could come to a decision with thinking clearly. You know, we should never jump to conclusions. People ask me, Rabbi, what do you think? Guilty or innocent? I say, I don't know. You have to see the facts. We have to think. We got to see what's going on. We can't just assume in life that we know everything. So important. If we could just wait and we could learn this lesson of patience, we'd be so successful and we could prevent so many of the fights and the problems that we have. So this is what's going on with Yosef. And just to close with maybe one more important lesson over here. What ends up happening at the end of the story? Reuven does teshuvah, right? Does he earn back the birthright? He doesn't. He still loses it. And here's another important lesson. A person sometimes in life, we could repent. And we could do teshuvah. But sometimes there are decisions in our lives, choices that we make, that wind up staying with us forever. We have to realize that. We have to think about the ramifications that our choices could sometimes make. We sometimes think, okay, I make a sin and then I do teshuvah on Yom Kippur and all's forgiven and it's all good. Not always. Sometimes we make choices and bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. And these choices live with us forever. You could do teshuvah. We can maybe be forgiven. But the rest of our lives are going to be affected by certain choices that we make. Teshuvah doesn't always just undo everything. Take a look at an alcoholic. They go into remission, they go into recovery, and then they're good. They're on a year, 2, 5, 10-year streak that they don't drink alcohol, and they're okay. But guess what? For the rest of their lives, they can never drink another shot of tequila. They can never have a glass of wine forever. Why? I did teshuvah. I learned my lesson. I'll just have that one glass. I just want to taste what a cocktail tastes like. I just want to taste it again once. No, you can't. Sometimes in life, the choices that we make haunt us forever. Forever, a person that's an addict must stay away. Even though now they recovered and they did teshuvah. Doesn't matter. And Reuven teaches us this lesson, such a powerful lesson. How careful we must be. Sometimes Yetzer Hara is so good at playing in our minds before the sin. Don't worry. What's the worst that'll happen? You'll repent. There'll be teshuvah. It'll be all good. You'll right the wrongs. Yeah, but not always. We can't always right the wrongs. Some decisions that we make remain with us forever. So I think these are powerful lessons from Reuven. I think this is enough for today. We'll stop over here. Everybody have a wonderful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.